Okay, well, boom. Okay, we're live. And, um, I'm actually beginning to suspect that maybe the live stream issue potentially has something to do with the browser. Because I use Brave, which is based on Chromium, but it's a little bit more lean and mean, not all choked up with the garbage that comes with Chrome. And it would not connect to YouTube a moment ago, and I killed the browser and restarted the browser, and then it connected. Makes me wonder what would happen if I was using actually Firefox for my live stream connection. But I don't necessarily want to experiment that with that right now live. So let's get to work. All right, guys, here's the deal. Um, what my channel is about is obviously the real world um, grunt work of creating a cartoon and everything that goes with that. So as I've said other times, it's not particularly curated content. Um, and as such, I sort of have to make the command decision of just how deep down the rabbit hole do you guys want to go. Why do I say this? Well, the actual thing that is on the agenda to be doing at the moment is this, which is a promotional video focusing on the story and characters. Here we have the actual pitch video, okay, that's going to wind up on Indiegogo here shortly. It's actually already on my YouTube channel, but it's an unlisted video, so I didn't want to stick it out there until, I'm ready to actually go live with the crowdfund. So the question, I suppose, becomes to a degree, how much do you guys want to follow along with the process of actually doing a crowdfund and all that goes with that surrounding the production of a cartoon? Now, the reason I bring that up is because of a comment that, okay, and there went OBS. Again, I think the next thing I'm going to do is probably download a portable Firefox that's like the latest version and see how Firefox does with the live stream. See if that makes a difference. It does seem possible it could be the browser, because the browser is juggling a lot of things. Although the actual live stream connection should be brokered directly between OBS and YouTube behind the scenes. It shouldn't have anything to do with the browser. But the actual connection to go ahead and go live, of course, is done through the browser. So how are those intermingled? It's a fair question that probably needs an answer. But anyway, so in terms of what is actually on the agenda that needs to be done, this is certainly a top priority. And meanwhile, there's a few things I want to do with yesterday's shot before I forward this shot to Darren T, who's going to be taking a poke at ink and paint. And one thing that we kind of noticed yesterday when Val and I were looking at this is that Golik's hands were a little bit large. They're okay. I've fixed them up to here, and then boop, look at that. So I still have to fix that, and then I'll show you guys how you would actually, how would you share a level with a friend. In the case of a standard raster level, which is what this is, it's not a smart raster level. It's a little different procedure than you would have to follow for a smart raster level, because a smart raster level, which is what this is one single file. It's a TLV file that has all of the imagery, which is this stuff with Vespar, all packed into a single file, whereas this level is actually what you see here on the left, which is an actual image sequence of individual images. Not a big deal either way. But anyway, I want to get back to Mikhail's question because it's a good question. And hey, Ashyan, welcome to the live stream. So what are we going to do today? Today, what we're going to do is we're going to finish the fix-ups on Golek. We are going to show you how to zip that all up and share it with a friend if that's what you're inclined to do. And then we're going to jump over here, review the actual crowdfunding pitch video. Okay, so, and you guys can certainly weigh in with your comments and criticisms on that. And then I need to jump over to this video, which is called Story and Characters. And this is where we take a little deeper dive on, well, obviously the story and characters, right? So, having said that, let's get to Mikhail's question. Mikhail says this, after our sort of spirited conversation where I spoke fairly openly, as I often do, about the whole process of filmmaking. He says, how do you create everything yourself? If you've created movies, haven't you gathered a following that would work on projects you're interested in? I can't imagine having to go through everything myself, from storytelling to creation to animation to voiceover to post-production. Plus, you have to know that it will go viral and get paid. How is this possible? Again, fair question. So I'm going to answer that in a couple steps. Number one, if you've created movies, that haven't you gathered a following that would work on projects you're interested in? My answer to that is yes, of course. Of course, I have actors, many of whom have very good voices that I can call upon. And indeed, there are a number of people that are, waiting for me to do the casting call, for Salt and Light, and figure out what the voices are going to be. So here's the thing about that. When you think about making a film, the only difference between making a film and making a cartoon is the animation. Okay, that's the only difference. And the animation is certainly the lion's share of the work. And as I pointed out here, ink and paint is the lion's share of the animation work, at least for me. That may not be true for others. It really depends on your approach to animation. Okay, but so with animation, you also have the additional step of the storyboard. But really, honestly, for most independent filmmakers, they would really do well to storyboard their movie anyway. Although most don't. They really should, because if you the more specifically you plan what you're going to shoot when you go out on the set, where you're paying your actors presumably, although of course with independent films a lot of times you're not paying your actors. I always did. I've told you guys multiple times that every film I made, every single one of them, basically cost $8,000 to make, and in every case, all of that money, all of that expense, 100% of it was just paying the actors. And I didn't pay them a great rate. I paid them $20 an hour up to $100 a day. So that's not very much. But if you're in the Midwest of the United States, to get paid at all, like at all, to do anything resembling acting is extremely rare. I mean, the opportunities are very few. And even with films like my friend Joel Reisig up in the Detroit area, he's done a number of movies with Dean Cain, for example, and he did one with Kevin Sorbo. And his budgets for his films are considerably higher, for the very reason Mikhail alludes to, is because he's paying an entire crew to be on the set, to deal with lights, to deal with audio, to run the camera, the whole thing. So Joel and I actually had a conversation a couple years ago about working together on a film, and where I would have been directing it and kind of managing the whole production process in my way, and outsourcing again to a team to whatever degree I would choose to, depending on how the situation sort of fell together. And this basically, at the time, it was just not the right project at the right time, for me to get involved with. So I'm like, dude, I want to work together on something sometime, but basically not right now. This isn't necessarily the right time or the right project. Okay, so I'm going to look at the comments here to see if there's anything. David, I just thought, would you want me to use a plastic tool and send that back to? Um, I think for this shot, uh, what I think that part of the so I'll come back to Mikhail's question in a moment because it's to me it's an important discussion to have. Anyway, Darren, I would say this: I'm deliberately leaving a certain amount up to you. Okay, so in other words, and so I'm not going to necessarily spell it out here. There are some strategies that I would employ if I was doing ink and paint on this shot that basically have to do with I'm probably not going to draw anything twice that could be drawn once, which means I'm going to be thinking to a degree about what things probably should be put on a second TLV level, a second layer, or third, depending on the case. Okay, so I figured I'd leave that ball in your court. You decide what you think the right strategy is to approach the ink and paint. And, you know, including the fact that obviously that's the same pose but zoomed in. You know, again, I guess I will say that if I was doing the ink and paint, I am almost certain that I would not be redrawing this shot, that I'd actually just be zooming in on it and continuing forward. Here, where obviously the only thing that changes is his eyes. So this is a great test case because there's clearly some strategy that could be employed to make this both more efficient or more complex. The truth is it's going to be both. It is a trade-off, actually, between simplicity and complexity because as an animation exercise, this shot is easier if it's broken into pieces at the cost of having those pieces having to be on different levels. So this is kind of the way this sort of stuff goes. It's like this, it's always this trade-off. I'll add the plastic tool because that's going to take me literally 5 minutes to do, and I don't know at this point. So in other words, your creativity vis-a-vis the plastic tool might be a wonderful addition. Let's save that for the next shot is kind of what I'm thinking. That type of thing. So yeah, let's just focus on the ink and or paint depending on whether you want to do it and deal with sending me back the PLI file. But yeah, so anyway. So I figured I'd keep it a little bit loose and just kind of let you do your thing and we'll see what comes back. So anyway, that's that. And then so back to Mikhail's question. He said, I can't imagine having to do everything myself from storytelling to animation, voiceover, post-production. I don't look at it as having to. I look at it as getting to because I think it's a lot of fun. In my reply to Mikhail, which of course you guys can look at publicly because it's on yesterday's live stream comments, I make the point that in practice, like you can, I'm living proof that you can have a movie out there that's fairly successful, and it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden, you know, I don't get people calling me, for example, wanting to work together. Okay, it just it doesn't actually happen that often. I think if I lived in LA, I know if I lived in LA, I'd be very busy. You know, there's plenty of work to do, and I'd probably be writing mostly. Is what I'd be doing. I'd probably be writing on a TV show or something. Because the truth is, that's my greatest strength is my writing. Everything else I've had to work a little harder, you know, to get reasonably good at. But so I look at it all as just kind of fun. And the final thing Mikhail did say is, plus you have to know that it will go viral and get paid. And to which I say, well, no, I don't think we know that. It'd be great, but we don't know that. And you know, to me at this point, I just look at it as I'm just going to do the best I can and let this thing unfold. The one thing I'm sure of is that I'm very strongly committed to the path that I'm on. which means as far as Salt and Light goes, definitely we're going to be putting out, we're going to be distributing 2 episodes everywhere at the very least. And I'm committed to doing that no matter what happens on the crowdfunding side. What the crowdfunding does is to the probably to the lesser degree, it allows me to grow the team and bring down the time frame. And I say to the lesser degree because frankly I don't think a big team's required, but there is a team required. You know, it's like you need some help to just offload that what I always refer to as grunt work. I mean, it's not that it's not creative, because it is, especially on the color side, which isn't something I consider myself particularly great at. But being able to have a small team of mainly, you know, of people that you enjoy working with, basically, you know, just friends who are talented and or have ambitions kind of in this direction. You know, I've done that in the past. I've given people, I've co-written with people, and then they get a writing credit, which is useful, you know, on their IMDb resume. You know, whatever. If I can help, you know, help a friend move their game forward, then I'm always happy to do so. It's no big deal to do that. So anyway, let's finish fixing this. Okay, we said his hands were... Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, now it's actually true that there's a case to be made for the hands getting a little bit bigger, like they're reaching out. I think they're still too big, but actually... and the other thing about this from an ink and paint standpoint, I'm just thinking out loud here, is that obviously I've left some of the costuming and the hands pretty loose. And I think I'm going to leave them loose. I think I'm going to leave them loose because I'm kind of curious. I'm curious what you'll do with that. It's an interesting thing about teamwork. One of the things you do have to sort of figure out, and it's one of the reasons teamwork can become, you know, there's a time period required of figuring out how the team operates together, right? One of the reasons I opted not to grow my business more than I did back in the day, we're going back now to the 90s, was because of what I saw friends go through who grew their businesses a lot more. You know, you grow the business, of course that translates into money. Money comes in, money goes out. And then I sort of looked pragmatically at that and was more interested in having my freedom than in having more money. Looking back on that, for the most part, I think that was the right choice. Because that's why I was able to get into filmmaking, is because I had time to do so, right? So I think this actually harkens back to Mikhail's question, this comment I'm making about the drawing here being sort of loose. The question becomes, am I going to be Mr. Lazy Animator who doesn't do my job? Basically says, well, if I draw this little shape right here, the person doing the ink and paint, can they understand it's a hand? Well, to what degree do I need to do my job and make sure that it's crystal clear what they're supposed to be inking? This is a really, really important question, actually, because when you aggregate that decision over the 10,000 tasks that it takes to create a show, all of a sudden that little decision translates in absolutely specific terms, translates into a big chunk of time that aggregates over the life cycle of the production. And so let me kind of expand on that idea. So Dave, being a lazy bum here, didn't actually draw the hand. Okay, so this is really, I can't emphasize enough, this is a really important thing to consider here. Okay, so if I was going to do my job, you know, I might be really, really specific about the fingers like this. And I'm basically going to make this a no-brainer where there's absolutely no question every little detail that has to be inked. Okay, now let's think about this for a minute. The problem is, if I'm going to do that, think about it. Why am I going to outsource the inking in the first place? Right? Why am I going to, you know, just because we're having so much fun working together, it's all just such a wonderful collaboration. Well, that is true to the point where people's talent and creative contributions become substantial, where you couldn't possibly do as good of a job without this person as you can with that person. When you cross that threshold, all of a sudden it becomes very important to let each person play their role. And by definition, you could say, if this is required, then we have to then figure out, is having the third party do that ink and paint actually, in other words, if they're sufficiently skilled, you can probably assume that they have the ability to turn that into an okay looking hand, right? But like I said, that decision becomes time. It translates directly into time. Who's going to redraw that hand from a sketch? So now you're getting into workflow questions. You're getting into the actual breaking this down from a storyboard, from a storyboard to a rough pencil test, to a detailed pencil test, to ink and paint. Well, was the detailed pencil test actually required? Well, if it wasn't, why did you do it? Because it winds up, you know, again, every single one of these little decisions has to be aggregated over the entire life cycle of the project, which in this case has 800 scenes. You know, roughly 400 per episode. Not quite. I mean, it's a little more, a little less, but basically it's about 400 per episode. So now every single, not only every scene or shot, you would say, this is a shot, not only every shot, but every cell in the shot comes with a set of decisions like that. And now you got the negotiation between the time it would take you to just do it versus the time it takes you to spell out what needs to be done, interact with the person, find out it's maybe not quite what you were after, but maybe, you know, but here's a little, you know, you kind of talk about it, and back and forth, and then a week later, you have it. And it's good. Okay, so getting back to Mikhail's question, in the filmmaking space where you're talking about writing a script, you're talking about editing, you're talking about, of course with this, you're talking about animation. Every single one of those tasks is replete with those decisions, okay? In the Midwest of the United States, what is easy to find is I can very easily find somebody who can run a camera and do good lighting. So basically the cinematography part of a film is pretty easy to find people that are good at that. And of course with the proliferation of cheap cameras, more and more people are playing that game, and so it's easy to find somebody that can do that. And you can train somebody in an hour to do a lighting setup, for example. So there's different things that you can train. You know, you could have some teenager that is interested in, you know, filmmaking or whatever, and train them very quickly to do some aspects that turn out to be really, really important. Lighting's one of them. Lighting's actually huge. So I hope that helps you guys to understand kind of what the tug of war is creatively. And by the way, Darren, since you are here, I will say the other thing I said in my comment to Mikhail is I think that the fan Futurama show is a great example of what I'm talking about, where what happens in the real world is, I create this script, I do the voiceovers, but the reality is I've got things going on, you've got things going on, and so people would probably look at it and think, wow, this is really cool, how come you're not like moving it forward? And the reality is it's because finding the right time and place and situation to go ahead and collaborate, all the stars have to line up where this person and that person and the other person, especially if you get more than two involved, who's got job conflicts, family conflicts, COVID-19 conflicts, aging parents, whatever. You can just go down the list, and there's a lot of things that prevent this idealized world where we're all just having wonderful, time collaborating together. It just doesn't actually work out that way in the real world. And you see it with well-known famous people that are creatives, either in the filmmaking space or whatever, where it's kind of, or in the music space as well, where you go, wow, it's kind of weird that they haven't put out anything new in like 10 years. It's just because they got stuff going on, man. They got other things going on in their life. And the microcosm of what their creative life appears to be from the outside and what their life actually is probably don't match up that well at all. So, anyway, okay, so I'm going to finish this. And then I guess what we'll do in this case is, actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Since the hands don't change shape, well, I guess I'll do my due diligence here. So I'm just going to, this is pretty quick and easy to do anyway. So I'm going to just grab this, and just kind of shrink that down a little bit. It seems like it was getting into the 90% range. Felt about right. Okay, so now this one, I'm going to allow this one to actually be a little bigger. So I find this stuff all very interesting, and it's also a lot of fun because I actually, I like I like working with other creative people, and I've enjoyed to a degree providing opportunities, as I said, like for a screen credit, for friends who are like writers or whatever. Okay, this hand doesn't matter because it's not on the screen. I forgot. Yeah, so this one's, I'm being pretty chimpy, so I think I should probably do my job on this one. So I'm going to just go ahead and do my job. I'm not going to do it ink quality, but I'm at least going to get the shapes in there so that we all can agree what we're working with. So, but I'm going to say it again and be Mr. Redundant because I think it's super important. That tug of war that I mentioned a little bit ago, whoops, that's not what I want to do. I want to go Control-Shift-R and then flip it back. That tug of war between the time it takes to really specify what you're trying to do versus leaving it to your collaborator is adds up incredibly. And I think that's what I saw with friends that were developing their businesses is that developing their business becomes really just about people. I mean, it really becomes about managing the group and the team dynamics and the politics, of a group of people all trying to, do something together. And that's a beautiful thing. I have no problem with it. I think it's great. It just kind of wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm Mr. Artsy Fartsy guy, and I guess I was just more interested in, challenging myself to learn to do certain things, like score a film, for example. I've joked that I started making films so that I could score them, and that is actually pretty much literally true. Okay, so I think we're in good shape. Got a bunch of comments here, so I'm going to save my work. Maria says, one of the reasons for theater groups having production meetings every Monday, it's a small production, but who knows what can happen. Keep everything coordinated. Right. So it's neither a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the realities that it demands attention. It demands you to give it attention and work with the people. And anytime you get beyond, you know, the ideal collaborative situation is a situation where you have different strengths and you, each person brings something to the table that the other couldn't have. That's the ideal scenario. In my experience, that rarely happens. And the reason is pretty commonsensical, because if you think about it, the people who are really good, who have those strengths, are developing their own opportunities and their own career. So the long and the short of it is the people that are really good tend to be busy, you know, and the people who aren't busy, who have all the time in the world to get involved with things, tend to not be very good. So that's what you see. What you see, I mean, it probably happens on Reddit nowadays, or maybe Discord or something, but back in the day it would happen on different forums, and I did it myself in the early days of Blender, where you try to put together a community thing where we're all together going to create this CGI thing, right? This cartoon or whatever. What happens is the group dynamics take over very quickly. Basically, one person winds up doing all the work. Usually that one person is usually like the one talented person in the group who, so basically 80% of the talent is in one person and all the rest of the people are 20% of the talent. And so 80% of the work winds up going to that one person because it really couldn't have been any other way. And then you also have the additional dynamics where the bigger the group gets, the more you get people that are there that are sort of glomming onto it just to sort of participate in the social dynamics, and they tend to just cause problems, actually, and just like find problems at every turn because that's their contribution. That can be a valuable contribution, to be perfectly fair. The person that criticizes, like anytime anybody criticizes anything I'm doing, even if I have an initial response to it, basically I pay attention because I always feel like I don't even care who you are. If you have a strong enough opinion that you express it, in many cases, there's probably some merit to that opinion. You know, now we're getting into politics, you know, in the political discourse with all the problems we have that we're struggling with today in the United States. I have a strong conviction that all voices are kind of important. Save all. Okay, so now what do we do with this? Well, what we do is I'm going to go over here, and you see in the project, which is SL for Salt and Light, has an extras folder. And what happened here was that Tahoma2D automatically created or saved all these images on disk for me. So now we've got this collection of images, right? So what I'm going to do, just to make it easy, I wonder if we have the ability directly from here. I'm looking at if we actually have a way to zip these up. We probably don't. Not really. So I'm just going to copy these. So I may come off a little bit snarky about, you know, sort of these group dynamics types of issues, and I don't mean to. It's just I kind of have been around the block, and so I don't just dive into stuff, you know, willy-nilly. As far as, you know, let's go to the Scratch folder and call this SL Extra, and let's just copy them in there. Okay, so now what we should have had happen, if everything went as expected, we will go to the S drive, SL, not backup. Oh, and now it's got a thing. Darn it. Come on. SL Extra. Okay, so there they are, and I need to go to my standard browser so I can zip these guys. So SL Extra. So we've got a sequence, and by the way, for whatever reason it saved them as TIFFs, but that doesn't really matter. So I am going to add these to an archive, and I'm going to do a standard zip. So one of the possibilities here, one of the possibilities is that emailing will flag this as a concerning email because it's a zip, and obviously a person could pack an exe into a zip that's going to do some malicious, horrible things to your computer. So so we'll see if you have problems on the email side, but now I have sent, boom, the zip file that has the image sequence to Darren, and have at it, my friend, have at it. So that's that. Okay. So, all right, we've got 3 concurrent viewers, which is kind of typical. 3 or 4 is pretty common. Maria, good question, and the answer is I'm sure we could, but since it took 1 second to email it, let's find out if Darren has any problems on his end dealing with the email having a zip file attached. Hopefully his email situation will be discretionary, where he can decide if he trusts what got sent to him. I'm looking at something here. Okay, so you got, okay. So the D-man is, looks like probably on Microsoft's email platform. Okay, so now guys, what we're going to do is we're going to get into the crowdfund pitch video. That's what we're going to look at first. So we're going to get around to characters. So as I say, here's the deal. This is what I need to do today. So for that reason, that's why I'm sharing it here, is because this is simply the reality of what I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to let this roll. I could show it over here in the editor. Okay, so Darren's good. But I think what I'll do is I'll just show this full screen. I got to check the audio here for a moment.
Salt and Light is an
okay, so there we go. All right, so I took the approach to this. Okay, there, OBS reconnected. Okay, so I'm reviewing this pitch video really for no other reason than to just share it with you guys. It'll go live shortly. And I don't remember and actually, since there's not that many people here, if you guys have seen it, like if I've gone over this before, I literally don't remember if I have gone over the Indiegogo pitch video here on the live stream. Does that ring a bell, or is this new? Let me know, because if I'm boring everyone to death, then I'll go start working on the characters and story video and skip reviewing this. And so I'm going to wait half a second to see if anyone comments that, yeah, Dave, we've kind of seen the whole pitch video thing, and like you're boring everyone to death. What is this? Okay, Golden Slime says, what is this? So that's good. Okay, so what this is this is a 3-minute, is it? Yeah, almost exactly 3-minute. Okay, so this is a 3-minute pitch video for an Indiegogo crowdfund campaign for Salt and Light, which I would expect to be going live in a few days. Now, the actual video that this edit here is, this is actually already on my channel, but it's not live. It's like an unlisted video because I didn't want it to go live until I'm ready to launch the campaign. So it's going to be like a few more days probably for me to get that done. But my expectation is for the campaign to be live between August, basically August 15th and October 15th is kind of the time window. Okay, so that's what this edit is. So what you're going to see here in half a second is the intro to the show, and then I come in with the voiceover and talk about the show and what it is I'm trying to accomplish here. Okay, so let's do that. We'll sit through that, and I'm switching to the other screen so you guys can just watch it full screen. And I will keep my mouth shut for the next 3 minutes. Okay, here we go. And by the way, I will add this. If the live stream disconnects, I'm going to watch it closely, and if it disconnects in the middle, I'll stop the video, wait for it to reconnect 10 seconds later, and then replay it from wherever we left off. Okay, so here's what we have today for the crowdfund pitch video.
My name is Asher. They call me a wise or holy man. I don't know about all that. The wisest thing I ever did was take in a young boy and raise him as my own. That young man turned out to be far more important than I could ever have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
If you're like me, you appreciate a cartoon that combines an epic quest, political intrigue, comedy, adventure, and engaging characters. Characters who have to learn to live and work together despite their differences. I decided to create a cartoon like that. It's called Salt and Light. My name is David Matthew Weiss, aka BlendedPlanet, the creator of Salt and Light, which is a show I conceptualized in 2010, and it sat on the shelf for 10 years while I was making live-action made-for-TV movies. As a filmmaker, I had tiny budgets, so I learned how to get production value on the screen economically. I also did a lot of it myself, writing the screenplays, directing, editing, even special effects and music. Now, I enjoy art and voice acting.
That was me doing the voice of Asher in the intro.
So for me, cartoons just made sense. Salt and Light is an epic 12-episode saga about 3 young people and a monkey caught up in a situation much bigger than themselves. It's stylistically similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender. So creating a cartoon doesn't really require dozens of people and millions of dollars.
Good news, everyone!
It turns out that 30 seconds of finished animation per day creates a whole 24-minute episode in, 48 days. So it should take about 3 years of quarterly releases to complete 12 episodes. But your help could really accelerate the process. The pipeline is already working. Episode number 1 is animated and it's ready for voices, sound effects, and music. Episode 2 is about 1/3 animated and it's moving forward every day. I'm committed to 2 episodes for sure, followed by an ongoing effort to set up distribution and further funding to complete the entire series over 3 years. If we get enough support, I'd like to be able to expand my team, spread the workload, and perhaps even release episodes more frequently. You're going to be helping create a very cool show and ultimately an entire series. I'm David Matthew Weiss, aka BlendedPlanet, and I want to thank you in advance for your support.
Okay, so there you go. That's the first draft of the pitch video, and so the next step, of course, is to a degree to go live with it, but also the next step would be to create the additional assets that are going to, be on the Indiegogo campaign. Yeah, Indiegogo Golden Slime specifically. That is correct. It's an Indiegogo campaign. It's one of the. Okay, I'm glad you like it, Maria. Thank you. I just it's going to be an open-ended campaign that doesn't, even though it's a 60-day push. Obviously, it's going to be the kind of campaign that. You keep the money no matter what on the one hand, and it goes on forever on the other. Because honestly, I expect it to have a multiple year life cycle, right? And so it could really very, very easily happen that the support, I guess I'll go back here because I've got my webcam. So the support could actually be fairly lackluster for the first 6 months, let's say. And then in the meantime, episode 1 gets released. Maybe we start getting some traction. People start to hear about it, yada, yada, yada. And then all of a sudden, the support starts to increase once the first episode's already out. That is so. I would personally think that is actually likely. That's probably what would happen. Because who am I? I mean, you know what I mean? I think if you look at the campaign, you'd probably be like, it'd be kind of interesting. But I guess one thing I will say about what I'm doing that I sort of baked into this video that was important to me was the idea that there is no question that episode 1 and 2 are going to happen and will definitely get released. Because when I looked on Indiegogo and I saw the hey Inio-san, when I looked on Indiegogo and I saw the campaign for Hullabaloo Steampunk, which raised about $400,000. Okay, and by the way, just to be clear, if I were to reach every stretch goal and all 12 episodes of the show got funded, actually the number would be around $400,000 because my budget is $36,000 per episode, which is a really, really humble budget for an animated cartoon. I mean, it's supposed to cost $1 million plus, right? But so it's a very reasonable goal, and so my basic goal would probably be $72,000, and then the stretch goals would essentially be funding all the additional episodes. But I mean, you know, at the same time, okay, so I would hope that people would root for me as sort of this one guy out there creating a show essentially all by himself. I would hope that people would root for me to be able to succeed in that, and even, you know, obviously make a living at it, and eventually, preferably sooner than later, expand the team and be able to release episodes more often. I mean, I could. I'm not saying this is my goal per se, but I could certainly envision a situation where I am essentially the head writer and showrunner, and everything else is being done by other people. That I wouldn't really have a problem with that if the situation was correct, because, you know, let's say, sorry guys, it looks like OBS is being stupid again. Max, where are you getting that number from? I cannot even imagine. Yeah, of course it sounds like a lot of money, but I mean, if you go Google what does it cost to create a 24-minute cartoon episode, even an anime episode, I can't even imagine seeing a number anywhere close to 150K as being the, you know, this is what it takes. Now, again, usually you're talking about a team, you know, you're talking about a big group of people, and you know, in the anime world, there's quite a, you know, there's an industry built around a certain way of doing things that tends to have a certain kind of cost. And then, by the way, there's also a distribution climate surrounding that. Okay, I see your point, right? Okay, so for me, that's my budget. My budget is gas rate show is 150K. I'm gonna look that up. I've never heard of that. What is gas rage? I'm assuming you spelled that right, so I'm gonna look that up. That's kind of interesting. Gas rage. Or is it spelled wrong? Is it garage? Is it actually supposed to be garage? Oh, garage. So garage show is 150K. Okay. Garage. And that's a cartoon? I'm not finding that. No problem, brother. No problem. Let's get back to work here. So anyway, that's the pitch. And now what I need to do is actually just get back to the grunt work of the story and characters. So the good news over here is that I didn't realize this until yesterday, but happily, because this is the second version of this I've done, okay. And by the way, we'll see how far I get before I sort of run out of gas yet today. I'm almost an hour into it. But the good news is that this is actually the edit of episode 1, and this is the edit of episode 2. So these edits, like, we can open these up in Vegas. So I can go edit in Vegas, and it's going to actually open up this episode, the edit in another window. Okay. Now it actually turns out it's already open over here. But the cool thing is, since these are nested edits, that means that all of the changes I've made in the shows between when I first did the first draft of this video and now automatically are reflected in this. And then I can cut this into pieces and use this as my source footage for this promo video. So that kind of makes my job a little easier. So yeah, I mean, back to the topic there. Obviously, the question is, you know, what ought the numbers to be? And I just kind of gave it a lot of thought, and my decision was that 36K per episode is the number. So you can do the math, multiply that by 12, and that's how many episodes. All right, you know, the stretch goal. I think that puts you at what, 360 plus 72, 432. So 432 would be all episodes are fully funded, and basically I've got my work cut out for me for the next few years. Okay, so what are we doing here? What are we doing? Okay, this is kind of fast-paced as far as
I'm David Matthew Weiss, creator of Salt and Light, an exciting adventure series about 3 youngsters thrown into an epic quest to save their land. Darkness fell over the happy and prosperous land of Newsy when the younger of 2 princes, Vespigi, carried out a coup against his older brother, prompted by opportunistic Golek, who has continued to manipulate the weak king, Vespigi, to the present day 20 years later. Now, Golek has hatched a plot.
Okay. So, as you can see, that's moving pretty quick. So now my job is to, and we've got this speed paint footage as well of the characters, but basically my job is to find stuff within the show that supports the narrative here as I'm talking about the characters. So I have a little bit of a decision to make, because just looking at my storyboard footage, yeah, I am actually going to kind of start clean here. As I say, I had a version of this that I did quite some time ago, and then I just decided to take a little bit of a different approach to the narration, if you will. Okay, so don't get into edit too much. Studio will change it. Yeah, that's not really a problem for me. I have the enthusiastic support of a distributor. You know, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I've made this distributor many hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, they've made a lot of money off of my movies, and because of that, you know, they kind of trust me, you know. So it's my story, my characters, my everything, and I decide. So yeah, nobody monkeys with me from an editing standpoint. Now, if somebody gives me some feedback or says, you know, this sucks or this could be better, then I always am going to listen, always, and I will appreciate their input. But this idea I think you're alluding to is not of particular concern in my case. And I will say also, Max, that I will I'm gonna defer on your last point. Your intro is the same as 10,000 other ones. Add a hook. On the one hand, I get your point. We're always going to walk a little bit of a tightrope between adhering to people's expectations on the one hand, but having a little bit of a hook, as you say, or you know, some kind of twist that's a little different. In my case, can we make this argument that, you know, one guy creating a show all by himself, to a degree, is the hook? Probably. I mean, to a degree. Is it enough? That's debatable. That's debatable. So, so here we have the speed paint footage, and I'm actually going to smack this up onto there. And what do we have here? So I have to look through my assets here and see what I have. So these are storyboard images. I don't really need those. We've got the storyboard images. Let me think about this for half a second. We've got the storyboard images from that are still baked into the show, obviously. Some of this stuff that was storyboarded, which you guys can't really see very well. Yeah, this has been animated, and frankly, the animated footage is stronger than the legacy storyboard images, so we're just going to get rid of those. I'm going to go Tools, Clean Project Media. So I do take your point, Max. I take your point, and it's a good point. But changing the intro to the show, nobody cares about you, only about Naruto. Right. Well, yeah, that's a fair point too. Nobody cares about you. I think that is true. I mean, and it's manifestly true. At the end of the day, the creators really don't matter much. What matters is the only thing people really ultimately buy into is the show. So, but at the same time, we could say on the one hand, so I'm going to move this downstream. So I'm basically clearing my desk here so that I've got room to work. So on the one hand, what was I going to say? I've often said that it doesn't matter, if I can do it all myself, that doesn't really mean anything to the ultimate audience. All they care about is they either like the show or they don't. So, but I do believe the combination of the writing and the cartoon, obviously, and then the voices and the score all will work together to help make it or the slave kid from Vietnam. Nobody cares about you, only about Naruto or the slave kid from Vietnam. Okay. Well, okay, Max. What would your twist? Hey, Ed, what would your twist be, buddy? What do you think would be an interesting hook? I think you've made a fair point here. So I think what Max is alluding to is if we go back to the intro here on the pitch video, he's saying, well, it kind of looks like a million other shows I've seen. Probably in particular, if we look at the end of it here. Okay, so Max's fingers are greasy, so he can't quite weigh in creatively at the moment. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so hey, Ed, welcome to the live stream. So today, what I've done is I've sort of covered the Indiegogo pitch video, which I won't replay, but it's basically a 3-minute pitch video that should be going live here within a week or two. And thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that. So what I'm working on today now is this. It's basically the characters story and characters video. So I'm going to actually roll this because I need to review it myself. So I'm going to roll this, and we will, and then I've got to put together the visual assets to support the voiceover, right? So here's the current iteration.
I'm David Matthew Weiss, creator of Salt and Light, an exciting adventure series about 3 youngsters thrown into an epic quest to save their land. Darkness fell over the happy and prosperous land of Newsy when the younger of 2 princes, Vespigi carried out a coup against his older brother, prompted by opportunistic Golik, who has continued to manipulate the weak king, Vespigi, to the present day 20 years later. Now, Golik has hatched a plot to marry the current Prince Vespar to Tianara, the daughter of his distant cousin, laying the groundwork for Golik to have a legitimate claim to the throne. It's against this backdrop that we meet Melchizedek. We don't know too much about his background other than having been raised by Asher, a humble monk who devotes himself to relieving the people's misery by feeding the poor. Crusty old Golik finds it irritating that Asher is beloved by the people and has the sympathetic ear of the king when he speaks on the people's behalf. Golik's plans backfire when Asher realizes the wedding may place the throne in jeopardy. As things start to unravel, Mel finds himself caught in the middle on the run and accidentally mixed up with none other than Tianara, fleeing her forced marriage to the prince. Their tenuous alliance is rounded out by Luca, a resourceful orphan with an adventurous spirit and an unpredictable pet monkey. Together, these four are on a quest they don't fully understand, pursued by a vengeful Prince Vespar. This brings us to the end of the first 2 episodes of Salt and Light, which act as a 2-part pilot and get the series moving. Future episodes are standalone stories, but also move the larger story forward over 12 episodes. I can promise a lot of fun and surprises that make the series a very cool and satisfying epic. I'm creator David Matthew Weiss, and I want to thank you in advance for any support you can provide, including just helping us get the word out.
Okie dokie. By the way, where is my webcam? I'm going to transition over here, and I am going to add my webcam to this screen, so bear with me, people. There we go. There we go, because I know you guys love to look at me. Okay. And why wouldn't you? I'm so handsome. All right, so now what we got to do is we've got to go through. I've muted the text because I don't want to be distracted with the.
Darkness fell over the happy.
I don't want to be distracted by the titles, especially because I'm probably going to get rid of these little titles and actually put little bumpers in between the sections. So that's what I'm thinking. Those are kind of garden variety titles that are currently in the wrong order anyway. Okay, so what are we going to do to support this? Let's keep going.
King Vespigi to the present day 20 years later. Now, Golik has hatched a plot to marry the current Prince Vespar.
Okay. He's hatched a plot to marry the current Prince Vespar to... No, there's never enough screen real estate to do all the wonderful things we would like to do. Well, see all the things we'd like to see. So, Friendship Hook group. Many people in the U.S. identify themselves as princesses. Well, it's interesting since my daughter is a party princess. That's her business. A female protagonist gets strong support today. Well, you raise an interesting point, Max. Actually, I think I mentioned this yesterday, but when I was talking to my film distributor about this, that's one of their problems too, is that the promo videos they have on their YouTube channel, which has 600,000 subscribers, they've done really well with it. But they need promo videos that actually feature women, because they've got these promo videos like welcoming you to their channel that are from sort of well-known actors, but they're all men, right? So so we're going to actually shoot a promo video to help them out with their YouTube channel, featuring Natalie, who obviously was in the movies that I've produced. So yeah, that gender thing. Okay, so Golek has hatched a plot. Let's just look at this for a moment. I'm looking at this footage, and so this is probably going to be the most boring part of this for you guys, because there's just no making it pretty. You know, you have to go through and just take the time to grab pieces, stick them in, see how they feel, you know, yada, yada, yada. Okay, and the role of Golik in the political situation feels like it's the main focus for a bit. I think it might help to introduce Mel a little earlier and maybe a little from his POV. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, if that's the case, now if that were the consensus, and it's a darn good one, it's a darn good one. You know what? You know what I think? I think Maria's right. I think I've been too careful here to make sure people understand the background behind the story, which might be important. That takes 20 seconds. So I could defend myself and say, well, come on, I only spent 20 seconds on it. But you're making a good point. That doesn't matter if people sort of check out emotionally because they haven't grabbed the characters yet. It would be better to introduce Mel and Tianara and then go back and take half a second to cover the background. Yep, I agree with you guys. Now, let me look at this real quick.
I'm David Matthew Weiss, creator of Salt and Light, an exciting adventure series about 3 youngsters thrown into an epic quest to save their land.
Okay, that means I need to do some rewriting, definitely. So this is not bad, but I don't believe that I can chop this up into what we're talking about here and make it work. So that means I need to stop, and I'm actually going to stop the live stream and do everything because I need to go back to the laptop and I need to rewrite the script. So I'm glad I shared it. I'm glad I got this input because I do think you guys are right. Go like this. You have a plan, you have your friends, you have a monkey, and then you don't have a plan. You have a disaster. Well, now that's pretty much how the plot goes, definitely. Now, that's getting into maybe a level of detail that's not quite right because monkey kind of does that, but it's not quite the way you're describing it, but I totally get where you're coming from in terms of just sort of a summation of the character dynamics. It's a really good angle on it. But I think the bottom line here and now is this. If I am to do my job, I have to stop what I'm doing right now and recognize the fact that this advice is good advice, and that means I have some rewriting to do. And I can't, there's no way I'm going to chop together and edit until I've first at least blocked in a script. So the problem is that the components of this are in the wrong order. So, yeah, that's a hook. I get your thing about a hook, Max. So, and I actually need to really just kind of get by myself for a bit and think about the angle on especially Mel and Tianara, because really one of the key things, like when you talk about Monkey, like this whole sequence through here is pretty cool in the sense that Monkey is really making life miserable for Mel. And you see it again at the beginning of episode 2, where Mel's chomping on down the road. See you, Max. Thanks for the input, man. Appreciate it. So here, and this clip definitely would look really cool in the video. I mean, that really captures a really cool moment right there with Monkey. So I think I'm gonna actually grab that and then this moment as well. Actually, a really key moment here, I think, would be when Mel and Tianara first meet, because they really get off to a rocky start where she's got this blade in his face, and it's like, so that's interesting. So yeah, that's what I need to do. I want to go through here and kind of really think about how I can take some of these moments that capture the character aspect of it, and I need to craft a narrative for that then turns into obviously a voiceover, which we then edit to and get things in the right order. Yep. So with that, I'm gonna stop the live stream because I've got other stuff I really probably should do that I don't think I could do it publicly very well. So if you guys are good with that, I will say thank you for tuning in. I've got some writing to do. So sorry. What are you sorry for? Maria, what could you possibly be sorry for? This is actually super helpful. I'll bet you, you know what? I'll bet you if Valerie would have looked at the at this script before I started editing it, I'll bet you she would have said the same thing. She probably would have said something like, you got to grab us with Mel and Tianara first. I mean, obviously, they're the focus of the show. Then come back, and if you want to give the political backdrop, that's all fine and dandy. But that's not what's interesting to people. And especially at the end, I mean, I love the way they are in a pickle. And, this moment here is really good, too, when they realize that they're going to have to work together and make the decision to do so. There's kind of a little bit of a soft moment there, obviously, with Tianara. That I think would really help. So, yeah, I mean, it's all good. Believe me, it's all good. But, it's just a matter that I've got some work to do. So, with that, I will say good news, everyone. I have writing to do, which I always enjoy. And with that, I am going to stop the live stream. We'll come back later. There will be more later, okay? Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the input.